Good afternoon. This is Taja Ethereal with the Shit Guys Say to Camgirls podcast, sponsored by Bullen Models. And this is episode, I think, 14. I'm not sure. It's been a really long time. I know it's been way too long. I got really busy the last month, and then I had some problems with schedule conflicts and so forth with having a co-host. Sorry to start out with a bunch of excuses, but I'm just trying to keep it real and tell you what's going on. So I still enjoy doing a podcast. I'm gonna start doing it more often, and I have more people lined up. But today's podcast is just me wanting to talk really quick over something that a revelation I had, or mostly this particular episode is motivated in part by like a frequent conversation that I've had with people all the time. I've been doing this for a long time, but I've had this conversation quite a bit over the past summer. And the conversation is about what makes a great cam model. You know what I mean? Like, who is a successful cam model? Like, is it just based on money? Is it a monetary thing? Or is it charisma, level of engagement? And of course, success is relative and it's based on what it is that you want to achieve. So, it's going to be a different thing. But mostly, we were talking about streamers, not just cam models, but streaming and how camming in a lot of ways is becoming more mainstream. How, if you started out as a cam model, and you've learned the ropes and so forth, it'll probably be fairly easy for you to branch out into other arenas and so forth. Or you can just keep pushing on and become like the super cam model. You know what I mean? But anyway, someone had last month in August, we're in September now, first week of September. Last month, someone recommended, after we had this conversation about what it takes to be a successful cam model. Is it just logging in and putting in your hours and, just showing up? Or is it more than that? And I personally think, yeah, of course, it's way more than that. So, anyways, they recommended that I listen to another podcast, and they were saying that they probably think that it's required listening, and the podcast in particular is called On the Media, and it's from the NPR podcast network. Now, I'm not really an NPR person. I do love podcasts. Like, I listen to the Joe Budden podcast. That's one I just listen to frequently. And then there's like the Black Girl podcast, and I listen to all kinds of random shit, gamer podcasts and so forth. And speaking of gaming, the podcast that was recommended was called Twitch and Shout. That was the episode from On the Media. Now, you're probably wondering, if you are not a gamer, you're probably wondering, like, what the hell is she rambling about? Or what does this have to do with cam modeling? And I promise it's going to make sense in a little bit. But it really got my attention, and I'm going to listen to you On the Media more often. But anyways, particular podcast episode, and I'm going to link to it in an article and like pull out bulletins so that for clarity you'll understand what the hell I'm talking about. But for Twitch and Shout, that episode was talking about streamers, and when I listened to it, I started to realize more of the similarities that between streamers, cam girl streamers, cam model streamers, and gamer streamers, or just streamers in general. Like, you have the streamers from the YouTube categories, the YouTube genre, where they're not just actually, it's not a genre, it's like different things, where they're not just gamers, but you have like the makeup artists, you have the people who are selling different things, you got people, girls who like do wig reviews and so forth. But in a particular one, when I listened to Twitch and Shot, I started to realize, like, yeah, I've known for years that cam models and gamers have a lot in common based on the technology that we all use. And of course, we use very similar things, like sometimes high-end cameras like DSLR, mirrorless cameras. You can use them with capture devices and so forth. Or of course, you can use the standard cam model standard, which is the Logitech C920 and now the C922, et cetera, et cetera. But, I've always known that for years. A lot of you guys know that I'm like all about my tech, and I love to I can talk for hours about tech. I can talk about gaming too, but I'm going to try to break this down. So the point of it was talking about the phenomenon of Twitch and how now they get more views, more streamers, more people watch them than Netflix. And it's just this phenomenon. Like, it's just out of control. Like, why do people tune in to watch these gamers? And it's a very similar fascination with cam models. Like, why do so many people log in to watch complete strangers? And it's not just about the sex. So if you're new to being a cam model or interested in becoming a cam model and you're wondering, like, well, am I just doing sex shows? Am I just doing the weirdest shit anyone can throw at me? Yeah, sometimes. Sometimes it really is like that. Other times it's just you're selling your personality. And so the light bulb went off when I was listening to it, and I thought, oh, that'll be a good article to write about. And I thought, well, I'm not going to write an article and just say, hey, listen to this podcast because it's recommended listening. I decided that here today I was going to break it down for you guys to what I think great cam models, like that, the ones who are that je ne sais quoi, that's something, that's special something, and is it possible to make money if maybe you don't think you have it? I think everyone kind of has it. You just have to know what to recognize within yourself. So I promise not to go off full gamer mode, love fest, blah, blah, et cetera, and all that. But yeah, it was a really great one. And what it came down to was that a lot of them, what we have in common, like I said, beyond the equipment, is like what it took for them to become successful, what they put in, what they give to the people, and what the people give back to them. So I think I could speak about personal experience for myself. Is like when I first got started in the adult industry, it's very different. I'm not exactly the same person, I would say. My perspective has changed, has shifted, and in some ways it's gone full circle right back to the beginning. And I kind of feel like right now, because I'm also branching out into other genres outside of adult, but at the same time, it's motivated me to reflect and go back and think about the things that motivated me in the beginning. And finding that I'm getting really excited all over again. And of course, like I said, all along, it's been, I think, important to, get to know your customer. You can treat it like a job, but one of the biggest things I could say, and what I've done and what I've used and what I witnessed or realized while listening to this particular podcast based on Twitch, was that you treat it like a job, but the trick is to not make it look like a job. You know what I mean? Does that make sense at all? Yeah, you can put in your time. You can map out what it is that you want to do, what kind of shows. First of all, you decide what kind of shows you're going to do, what you're going to perform. You set your own personal boundaries and so forth. But if you can pull all of that off, and make it look like fun, then I think you might be onto something. You know what I mean? Like it's one thing to like throw yourself into it and like try to investigate how to perfect the perfect HD stream, because like most of us are in it for the long haul. We've invested money in computers with top-notch processors that can handle multiple programs at once, and some of the top cam sites practically demand a blood sacrifice, your left tit, and practically all your CPU usage. Thanks, StreamMate. But, beyond that, the similarities with gamers, and I'm listening to these people. I'm listening to like one of the top gamers for Fortnite is Ninja. Yeah. You listen to him talk and what he puts into it, and it's like, why do people just tune in and watch some scrawny, geeky-looking guy with pink hair just fucking scream at his computer? Well, because he's entertaining, he's he's relatable, and, people like him. I mean, on paper, you first look at this guy and you're just like, really? That's the guy who's making, like, millions of dollars and shit? Cam models, are we making millions of dollars? I don't know any yet, but I know quite a few who are in the six-figure club. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's pretty possible. And I would say that that's the same thing. So it's like, okay, I guess what I'm talking about, like one of the conversations we were having, some of them were people were sending me messages looking for insight because they were upset because the money wasn't coming as fast as they would have liked, or et cetera, et cetera. But then when you watch their shows or kind of break down into their, I guess you could say, cam model psyche, what their motivations were. Many of the people just thought like, oh, just put in their hours. They didn't engage. They felt like they should be paid right away for every single thing they do. Like they should ask for a tip for everything. And that doesn't always work. There has to be like a level of salesmanship. There has to be like a sense of community where people believe in you. They believe that they are spending their money, giving their money to something that makes them feel good. And that is a common thread I've felt. Like people want to be made to feel good because, we're dealing with some crazy shit right now. Politically, all around the world is just going kind of haywire. So when people, log in to a campsite and, you know, whether it's a campsite or Twitch, if they're whatever they're on, they're there to have a good time. Some people understand that this is our job. Some people don't understand it. Some people think it's confusing. They're like, really? You get paid for this? But ultimately, it's going to have to come down to interaction. Can you sell yourself? Are you relatable? Um, can you make them feel good in a certain way? And of course, yeah, there's another part of the conversation that I've had with people wanting to connect with a virtual audience is that what if you're a findom? So that was really like another part that motivated this podcast, not just to ramble about the wonders of gaming community and so forth, but it was another part where you know interacting with people who really really want to break out into findom, into being an online domina, and they're having a hard time with it because I don't think they quite understand that all the work that goes into maybe the people that they idolize, people that they see online who appear to be super successful, and maybe they don't realize how there's like some smoke and mirrors involved. So another part, and to tie it into this podcast, which I really think that episode was really great, and if you can stomach some of the talk, but basically what it was just like a bunch of different audio taken from interviews from gamers who are mostly big on Twitch, and it was compiled into like a 60-minute, actually it was more like 55 minutes, less than an hour podcast, where it was all edited together and there was a common stream. There was a person who narrated it to bring all the little snippets together. So during that podcast episode, there was Dr. Disrespectful, who's a Twitch gamer, and he's like super amped up, like this fake idea of the alpha male. He's a fucking dickhead. He's an asshole, and the way the person described him, I've seen him before, but this person was a perfect description. They said he was like an old-timey wrestler from the 80s who just plopped down into a chair and started playing video games and turned his webcam on at the same time. So Dr. Disrespectful, I would say, is very, it's synonymous with the online domina, the humiliatrix, the cash princess, the fuck you pay me hustlers. Yeah, so what I would say, I would use him as an example. The similarities between their streaming world and then our streaming world is that he's playing this character. He's putting on this persona of, he doesn't give a fuck about anything. He's Dr. Disrespectful. But at the same time, he also goes on and he says that he receives messages from people from all over, messages of gratitude, people thanking him for reaching a part of them, making them giving them something to look forward to. Like he says he gets messages from people who are suicidal, people who wanted to die, people who wanted to leave this world and didn't want to live anymore, people who are cancer patients. He's gotten messages from soldiers who fought and served the United States or whatever nation. And I'm thinking to myself, Dr. Disrespectful, like who the fuck, would think that this guy who has this like villainous, cartoony mustache that twirls and stuff and would even care about those letters. So the point is like, just like someone who puts on that persona, there are dominas who might put on that persona and might project this image of fuck you, pay me. There's a lot more to that hustle that goes on that you probably don't even see. You might not even see the back and forth conversation where she might have had to like, get a little vulnerable and say, hey, the rent needs to be paid, or things are a little slow this month, or, can you add a little 100 onto your payment? Because like, you have guys who show up to spoil you on a regular basis, some every once in a while, and sometimes things get a little hard. So hold on one second. Sorry, I had to drink some water. But like, you don't see the part where they're working that offline hustle, the sweet talk. You don't see that. You just see the middle finger and the worship me videos, and which is all good. It's all good because they are part of the game. It's like smoke and mirrors, manipulation, and perfecting the art of coaxing the money out of the guys and, making them feel good. So even if you're just talking to your customer, and that was something someone had brought up somewhere, was they just want the guys to tell them what they want. I think sometimes for a lot of people, that part of the cam modding industry, whether it's phone sex even, if it's just anything where you're providing a service, you have to talk to people. It doesn't mean that you are being a GFE, the girlfriend experience, which can take a lot of time. But I think a GFE aspect and then a femdom aspect, I think they can exist in the same bubble. I think it can all go under the same umbrella because you do have to provide customer service. You have to get to know what the customer wants. You have to be able to relate to them and so forth. And I just thought it was a perfect example of Dr. Disrespectful, of someone who's like, his characters, he's the ultimate asshole. He just doesn't give a fuck about anything. But actually he does. He does give a fuck. You know what I mean? And this man is making so much money. I wish I could be able to brag about more women on Twitch, but unfortunately there just aren't a lot, because it does seem to be more of a boys club. But I think there's room to branch out and do something different. There's something that's for another podcast, another time. I promise I wouldn't go off into gaming shit, but there's space for us in that world. In some ways the space has been cam modeling, or if you are a YouTube streamer who talks about lifestyle, life advice, or like I said, the people who do the wig reviews, the makeup reviews, people who do DIY videos, stuff like that for like tech talk and all that shit, doesn't mean that we can't be gamers who do it, because of course on Twitch there's like different things, like people are putting the games in the background. So just like when you log in to be on cam site, it's not all about sex. For a lot of people, the sexual part is in the background. A lot of those guys show up because they like you. They want to talk to you. They genuinely want to know about your day. They want someone to ask them about their day. I mean, they're putting time aside, and in a lot of cases, money, just to help you out, to kind of like sponsor you in your life and your dreams. So I think, it's all good to want to do the goddess persona, and I'm not throwing shade on anyone who does that, who primarily wants to focus on that. But what I think is most important is that there are many different faces, many different ways to play the goddess. You don't have to be like the complete ice princess. And just because it says Ice Princess doesn't mean that's what you are. But there's just so many different opportunities right now, like to work from home and to work on your own terms. Because another thing towards like, let me see, I think it was towards the end of the podcast, they were talking about lots of cameras. I'm like introverts and so forth. And I just started nodding my head like, holy shit. A lot of cam models are introverts. Like almost everyone I talk to, like on forums or the few that I have met in real life, all say that. And a lot of the gamers were saying the same thing, is that they come alive when they turn their cameras on and they start talking to people and so forth. And I mean, it's just working from home as a streamer is like a total godsend for a lot of introverts all over the world, you know? Yeah, it was the Radio Lab portion, which goes towards the end. So like, when I link to it and you want to like jump ahead and hear that part, I'll just do that for you if you don't listen to the whole thing, but I really think you should. So yeah, one other thing I want to talk about, like being introverts and how you can incorporate that into your cam life, or at least how I did it, because I've been at it like for many years, and I wouldn't say that I was a shy person. I was never really shy because I used to be a bartender, so I kind of learned how to talk to different people, but I wasn't always as open and, outgoing when I would get off work. It's something about, I swear to God, it's something about making money that that brings the spirit, the bubbliness out of me. I swear, it's like a switch, and it used to be like that, but it's different now. But what I used to do while I was working live on cam when I first started is I would try to channel the energy from various people and pull like the weirdest quirks and characteristics from various people throughout my life. And then I would try to channel it while I would be live on cam. You know what I mean? It's not like my shtick was like completely inauthentic. It's just like putting on a performance. You know what I mean? So like, yeah, and it would allow me to connect with viewers on like a different level. I mean, I was still being myself, but there would be like things like if I met someone, like if it was someone I met on a bus, or a lady I saw at a store one time who said something like fucking hilarious, or her voice that she would do, I would take inflections from that conversation and points from that exchange and just like work it into my cam persona. I think that might make me a little crazy, but I think that's like acting, and I think all actors are crazy, kind of. You have to be a little bit. So yeah, that's what I used to do. And then before you know it, I started to realize that I was doing it kind of like all the time. So now, that shyness, the hesitation I used to have years ago, kind of went away. It's like I can approach a person anywhere at any time. So yeah, I completely related with that, and a lot of the other cameras who contact me want to know about like, what do you do with shyness, and if you're shy, how do you combat shyness and so forth. And I just would say, act like someone else. Don't act like yourself. Who's that cool girl, that cool dude, that person that you've always admired and you just like the way they carry themselves? Think about that person when you're streaming, and give that a try. And next thing you know, you might start emulating some of their personalities and their little tics and stuff. It's really funny how that works. I don't know if I'm the only person who does that, but that's just kind of what I did. So if you ever see me like live on camera, you probably are just watching like 20 different people and one person coming out. Now y'all really think I'm crazy, but yeah, that's what I would do with that. Now, of course, on the downside, there's always a downside. There's an upside, a middle side, a downside, a flip side, right? The downside, of course, is like when you're a streamer, sometimes people don't realize that we're real people with real feelings. And, then there are those who think, in part, in some ways they own us because they've paid us. I mean, it's kind of a weird situation to be in, right? Because on the one hand, they don't think we do this as a real job, and they don't understand the entirety of what we go through to provide quality streams. Like, they don't realize that we've put money into i7 processors, and we may have built our computers, and you know, the lighting, what we go through, the 3-point lighting, the ring lights, the encoders. Oh my God, fucking encoders. You know, a high speed internet, you know, the fucking, bandwidth that could, you can transmit to Mars if you have to. You know what I mean? They don't realize all the things that we put into. So by the time they start paying us, a lot of that money doesn't come back to us right away. But anyways, so you have people who don't realize that it is a real job, because of course if you're really good at what you do, you treat it like a job, but you make sure it doesn't look like a job. You know what I mean? So there's that. You kind of can't always tell them. But then on the other hand, there are those who might actually put money forth to contribute, no matter how great or how small, and then they kind of take ownership. Right? It's wild. So yeah, on the Twitch and Shout episode, they had one person who closed it out. It was a homeless streamer from the In Real Life section on Twitch. He goes by VP Gloves, and he was talking about how he became popular after joining Twitch, and he gained sponsorship. Basically, people were paying him to go stream. He grew with massive numbers, and now he's facing some of the same things that Cammodels go through, when your regulars can kind of turn on you. You know what I mean? You're like, the shit they say to us, the things they do to us, they post the crazy things they might post in your cam room. Sometimes you just have to laugh at it and take it with a grain of salt. You know, like they tell you to, if you show your titties, you'll make more money, or you're mean because you don't give them money, or you don't give them attention, or they start cursing at you. Because now suddenly when you tell them no, or you don't, get up and show your ass, and all of a sudden you're ugly. And I'm like, well, why have you been in my room for 20 minutes if I'm really ugly? They kind of deal with that shit too. Even the male streamers. It's not just the girls, because the girl streamers do deal with a lot of misogyny, and there's misogyny in the cam model industry, of course, but it's just in different levels. But the particular streamer from the In Real Life section, VP Gloves, he has a backstory. If you don't know the backstory, you can just Google it, VP Gloves and girlfriend. And it's gotten to the point where he's getting some negativity because he found a girlfriend, and like, people matched him with his girlfriend to be on his stream. I mean, so people have now started to take ownership of this person because they feel like they built him, they made him, and his relationship what it is, and now they've kind of like turned on them a little bit. It's kind of sad, So now he's dealing with like some negativity and trying to figure out how to maneuver through that sort of thing. And it's really fascinating because in a lot of ways we deal with that, because it's like, what happens when you have a great regular who's been very supportive, and they're polite and they're nice and they've been around for a really long time. And I know this can be a real major problem for some people, because I know it's happened to me, and I see it frequently asked in different places, like, what do you do when you need to break up with your regular? What happens when they start to turn on you? And just what do you do? How do you handle it? So VP Gloves was still at the end of that podcast. He didn't really have a definitive answer on how he deals with it. But for me personally, I have realized that when it gets too bad, when it's just like you can't stream, or they're starting to dominate your room, I just ban them. I know. You're like, wait, aren't you just like turning down money? I've been at this too long to like let, someone control my money or my headspace, get in my headspace, and again, control your money. Because yeah, he may have paid like, $1,000 last month, or he might come through every month with $500 or whatever. He might buy your entire night. But if they're fucking with your head mentally and making other people not want to interact in the chat room, it's time to cut them loose. You give them a little, a talk first, a little soft talk. And if they don't, understand or respect, then you have to cut that rope. And what I've noticed is when you break up with a regular and it's almost never final, they always come back in some kind of way. Like the one they almost always do. Sometimes they try to act like they're a different person, but they really can't. Some people will come clean and just say, hey, I was being a bonehead. I had a boner. What can I do? Maybe they were getting too close or too invested in you, because that's really, really rough too. Because sometimes you have to give a lot of yourself, kind of, to your customers, to your chat room, to your money making stream. So it's like you don't want to, shoot yourself in the foot by being rude to a person, but you don't want to be dominated by them. And I'm sure there are going to be a lot of people listening to this podcast going like, what the fuck is she talking about? I just log on. I just do my hours. I just put in my hours. I turn my camera on. I cut that shit off. Good for you. That's great. But there are other people who actually do keep up with their customers in their off time, who send out newsletters, who really care about engagement, who love interacting with the people who spend money and help pay their bills. There's just different types of people, and so there are different types of cam models. So it's great if you're making the amount that you want to make. And I know not everyone wants to be like a super cam model. Not everyone wants to be well known and so forth. But I think if you want to do better and you want more than what you're doing, it's nothing wrong with taking an honest look at your hustle and seeing what you need to do to tweak it a little bit. Like, are you as approachable as you should be? I have to ask myself these questions. Sometimes I get really comfortable, and then I start noticing my money is slipping a little bit. Like, oh shit, where'd the money go? Well, maybe I wasn't being as engaging. Maybe I didn't do enough to make myself stand apart from everyone else that's doing it, because it's a very competitive business. Am I captivating enough? Am I giving them a product, creating content that makes people want to come back and tune in day after day, week after week, stream after stream? So I think just, you got to be honest with yourself. You got to check in every once in a while. And most likely be honest and look at your product, look at your content, and don't just hold it up to the next person and go, well, they're doing this. Well, why can't I do it? Why am I not doing it as well as them? You really got to be honest and think, well, are you really doing all the things that they're doing? And of course, it's going to be hard to tell what they're doing, because not everyone is going to be open. Not everyone's going to share the little behind the scenes, like me, for instance, or any other wonderfully talented and generous cam models that I know out there, who day after day contribute so much to our community and help people to grow and become better cam models. Or if you want to take these skills and move on to another platform outside of adult, definitely it's possible, because I can tell you it's so possible. Some people merge it all together and they don't have like a distinction between adult and mainstream. That's really tricky. That's a very tricky one if you try to do both of them simultaneously under the same umbrella. But then it can be difficult when you split it up. So yeah, I've rambled enough on this podcast, but I was just really fascinated by the topic. I listened to the Twitch and Shout last month, and then I listened to it again today, and I thought, like, man, that'd be a good podcast conversation to have with people, and just talk about a couple of issues and bring up a couple of points that I've noticed through Camland, and things that have fallen in my inbox, things people have hit me up on Skype, and we talk about different things. So yeah, that was the whole motivation for here. I might have branched out a little a little too much, but yeah, I'm gonna have a write-up as well for this to like accompany article with a couple of bulletin points, and then in between to write down a couple of different things, little tips and tricks to help you combat the different parts of streaming and how to become like more engaging, how to work on that all in one place. You know, some people might understand it. It's not going to be the same mythology for every single person. You know what I mean? Because the methods I may use may not work for the next person. But I mean, hopefully by the end, you've listened to this, my ramblings, or read the written article. You'll be able to use some of it, right? I mean, even if it's just one thing, that's kind of an accomplishment, right? I hope so. So I'm going to end it here. This is Taja Ethereal with the Shit Guys Say to Camgirls podcast. And I'm going to have another podcast I'm going to be uploading in, I think, 4 days from this one. This one's going up immediately. And then I'll have another one 4 days after that, because I already have one in the can. I want already to go. And then I got to round up some of these people that keep saying, yeah, I've been on a podcast. I've been on a podcast. And then the day of is like, they're ghosts. Like, what the fuck happened? You know? And I don't like to chase people. I don't want to, like, you know, hassle people. I want people to come on and talk to me and who really, really want to be on here. So I'll probably be reaching out to some of the other regulars that have been on here, who've helped out in the past. As always, if you're looking for the podcast and you want to find it, you can just go to, we're on SoundCloud, is the .com is shitguysstaytocamgirls.com. Real easy. You just go there and it'll take you directly to the podcast, and you'll get to be able to listen to previous episodes that we've had with a lot of wonderful people. So that's all for now, and I hope you have a wonderful night and enjoy your week. Good luck out there. Bye-bye.